All right, we're wrapping up this playoff special edition of Crossover Thursday. Locked On Eagles and Locked On Packers. Louis DiBiase alongside Peter Bukowski. Eagles Packers this Sunday at 4:30. Cannot match up. And Peter, you were mentioning at the end of segment 2 that you think for Green Bay, so you think Philadelphia needs to change what they normally do.
It's not that I think they need to. I'm wondering if they would be willing to, because what we saw Minnesota do and they're the heaviest zone coverage team in the NFL this year, Minnesota. They played man on I think in the first half, 60% of dropbacks. And I know that Philadelphia is not a true man coverage team. The Vic Fangio defense can often feel like man coverage. It can kind of look like man coverage at times because of the man match nature of what they're trying to accomplish. But they're not a true man coverage team. They play man coverage, kind of a mid. I think 15th was the way Field Vision interpreted it. Depends on how you want to define some of these things. But so I do wonder. I look at Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay and Cooper Jean and go, if they want to, they probably can play more man coverage against Green Bay than they've seen, or than the Packers have seen on tape. And I just want to hear from you if you think that's something that they might be willing to do, or if they're just like, hey, we think we're good enough doing the things that we do that we don't have to adjust to what the Packers do or what teams have done against the Packers. Yeah. We feel like we can get stops doing what we do.
So I do feel like Vic Fangio is going to start off doing what he does. And the way the defense has had success, I don't think he's going to want to totally change up what they've done all year early on. But if Green Bay is having success, I saw a stat today, something to do with the Packers' success with the deep ball and how a lot of that has come from Jordan Love, drop 5-7 step dropbacks. It's not off the rip. And so for that, of course, you have to win with your pass rush quick. And especially if you're playing zone coverage, you can get hurt in that way. So I do think if they're having success, with the vertical game, if Jordan Love looks like the guy from last year's playoffs against the Cowboys and 49ers, Fangio has been really, and it was something I was nervous about when he was hired is, okay, how is he with in-game adjustments? I do think he has adjusted quickly this year, especially at halftime. He has been such a good post halftime adjuster. So if that is the case, I don't predict they're going to play man coverage from the jump. But if Jordan Love looks like the hot Jordan Love that we've seen in years past, then I think they will adjust because, like you said, they have the personnel. And that's what bothers me sometimes is I understand that zone coverage is going to be used primarily in the NFL, but when you've got the guys and you have a Quinyon Mitchell playing 15 yards, 10 yards off the ball and just giving receivers space, it bothers me personally based on
you're preaching to the choir on that.
I'm a man coverage really guy, though. I played corner growing up, too, so it's just my personal preference, but I do think eventually they would adjust, but I don't think that's how they would start off the game.
Yeah, again, I'm not suggesting they need to change what they do. It's just something that I think, especially without Christian Watson, who has been the man coverage killer for the Packers this season, is that something that they might be a little bit, or maybe just hey, we're going to press this team more often. Matt LaFleur talks about that the Packers receivers are going to have to be ready to have a physical day, both at the line of scrimmage and at the top of route stems. And just say, look, we're going to have to play through the contact because the contact is not going to get called. It's a playoff game. We don't expect the referees to give any help. In fact, he even joked, he felt like every time he mentioned before a game to an official, hey, this defense, they grab a lot, keep an eye on that. He's like, every time I've done that, I feel like we've gotten called on it. And so it's just sort of I don't even want to do that. And I thought that was amusing. I think if you watch the Vikings game, they were very, very, very physical. In basketball, when a team presses,
right?
Usually teams that press get away with a lot of physicality, and they force the officials to say, we're either going to call this every time or never.
Yeah. And in the playoffs, I think you can get away with that even more.
Exactly right. And so that's why if I'm the Packers, I want to see more cover 2 from them. They're already a heavy cover 2 team. Press those guys at the line of scrimmage, try and throw off the timing. But I want to hear from you from an Eagles standpoint.
Yeah.
Can Philadelphia, think of that week 1 game. If it's just the Saquon show, can they win this game just with Saquon Barkley, or are they going to need Jalen to make the 3 or 4 plays that he made in week 1 to get this game?
I talked to Gino about this exact topic on the show on Tuesday. And again, Saquon Barkley in the offensive line, it's been historically good this year. So I don't want to say no, they can't win if Saquon has the kind of performance he did against Washington or the Rams or pretty much every game this year. But I do think it's not going to be a blowout, and it's going to be close in the fourth quarter. And there's going to be times where Jalen Hurts does have to make the play. Yeah, 100%. And the good thing is, although Jalen hasn't been like the MVP favorite he was in 2022, or heck, even the first half of 2023, he was carrying that offense with a high volume passing game, throwing 30 plus times. At the same time, there's been key areas he's been very good at this year. It's been on third and fourth down, got to have it situations. He's been very good in the fourth quarter, and he's taken care of the football since that first month. So those are three very important things for the playoffs that I trust. If they got to lean on him and he's got to be the Batman late, I do think he can do it. But again, they're going to want Saquon Barkley to lead them to a win in this one. So I don't think suddenly, don't expect to see what the game plan has been, the previous 2 years before this.
I looked and I looked and I looked to try and find a place where this Eagles defense is vulnerable, because I truly believe this game comes down to, can the Packers offense score enough points?
Sure.
And
what Jordan Love are you going to get is a great question for this one.
Well, and what is Matt LaFleur going to ask of Jordan Love? If you go back and you watch that first week, he let Jordan Love just go out there and try and cook. And it worked, right? And they got a great run game performance. They averaged almost 8 yards a carry.
Yeah, Jacobs had a great second half, especially.
Josh Jacobs was really good. Emmanuel Wilson was really good. They got an explosive from Jaden Reed, a 30-yard run. We haven't seen them use Jaden Reed as a runner that much, except on 4th and 2 against the Bears on a jet sweep that I hated last week. But for this team, the one place that the Philly defense is not like awesome, it's in that intermediate part of the field, that 10 to 19 band. And it's not like they're bad. They're middling. They're like 16th in EPA per dropback against those throws. Here's the problem, Lou. That's the worst part of the Packers offense. So like, this is the issue. And I think this is the key, because a couple weeks ago, Tom Brady said something that I thought was so damning about this team. He said their intermediate passing game lacks detail. And I just thought that's tough. Like that sucks. But we've seen the intermediate passing game be a real boon for the Packers at times, going back to last year and going back to parts of Matt LaFleur's tenure. That's the thing to me, is can they take advantage of that intermediate space behind the linebackers, in front of the safeties in a 2-deep coverage? Can they get Jaden Reed? Can they sneak him in there? Can they get Tucker Kraft in behind? They got an explosive play on play action. It's a little mini Y leak off play action from the gun. They sneak Tucker Kraft across the line of scrimmage. The linebackers suck up on a run fake, and you get Kraft in behind. Can you get a couple of those? And to me, that can be the difference to scoring enough points versus not scoring enough points.
Yeah, and I think for the Eagles, again, you were looking at like, where's the weakness in this defense? I think overall, personnel-wise, like the Packers have a very good roster on both sides of the ball.
Yep.
For the Eagles, though, I think the key is just going to be and it sounds cliche, but don't shoot yourself in the foot. I think that first game, again, you cannot, especially in the playoffs. The
Packers did the same thing. Both teams tried to give the game away.
Exactly. Jalen Hurts cannot be on his own 3-yard line throwing the football over the middle with 2 defensive backs surrounding AJ. He can't throw it into triple coverage. It's been something he has worked very hard at stopping since the bye week, and he's been very good at that. His turnover-worthy plays is down substantially compared to the month of September. So you cannot and Green Bay is a very good defense when it comes to turning the football over. Xavier McKinney, led the league in interceptions this year. So I think that's a key, and they have to start faster. That's one thing that the first quarter, it's crazy that this bit continued all year, where quarters 2 through 4, statistically, like they're the best offense in football. In the first quarter, they are 32nd. So I think those are 2 keys for the Eagles. Don't turn the football over, and they got to start fast. I think getting A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith the ball early really helped them kickstart things against Pittsburgh. And I think tempo really worked too. I think sometimes this team comes out lackadaisical in the first quarter, and Green Bay, I remember watching those 2 playoff games last year. They jumped on those teams fast. So you cannot afford to be sleepwalking through the first quarter and say, hey, we're the Eagles, we're more talented than anybody, like we can do this. Like I really hope that is not the case again, because that was a theme all year.
You sound like me, because that has been an issue for the Packers at various points this year, coming out slow, especially in big games. Like you think about the Lions game, they explode in the second half. The Vikings, both times, they explode in the second half. They have to come out fast in this game. Now, if it's 0-0 after the first quarter, like I think both of these teams are going to count that as a win. I really do.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I feel like, you know, I was joking with Lauren Cox last week for the Packers Bears game. I was like, bet the first half under on the Packers, like whatever it is, just bet the under. And I feel like, okay, in this game, I'm gonna look at that first quarter under on FanDuel, like whatever the first quarter total is.
Yep.
I'm taking the under on that, and then we'll figure out how to go from there. I don't have a great feel for this one. I'll be honest. With the injuries of Jordan Love, Evan Williams coming back, Quay Walker, if those guys come back, like if we get the injury report on Friday, it sounds like the Eagles are going to have 22 of 22 preferred starters. Like that sucks from a Packers perspective because they're not going to have Jair Alexander. They're not going to have Christian Watson.
Yep.
But I do think the Packers showed in week 1 a lot that is translatable for them. And I think they can win this game even without those guys, assuming Jordan Love is okay. And especially getting Quay Walker and Evan Williams, because you have to stop Saquon Barkley. You have to stop defend the middle of the field. And that's going to be so crucial for what both these teams want to do.
Yeah, and again, I respect the Packers. I think it was a tough draw for the Eagles in the first round. I think it's going to be a close game. This is not 2022 where you're going to blow Daniel Jones and the Giants out of the water. I think it'll be a close game. I think the Eagles will win it late in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, the NFC, Peter, is a much better conference this year, I feel like, from top to bottom than years past. So this is going to be a good one for sure.
I agree. Luke Braun said to me a week or two ago, even after the Packers kind of peed down their leg against the Vikings, he said he thinks that the only teams that will beat NFC North teams in the playoffs are NFC North teams. The last time I checked, the Philadelphia Eagles do not play in the NFC North. So yeah, I will take the Packers late. And in the first game, the Packers, they kick a field goal in the low red zone when they probably should have gone for it. And Braden Narvison missed the field goal. Brandon McManus is not Braden Narvison. And I think the kicking game could end up being huge for the Packers in this one. So I think this has got like 31-34 kind of written all over it to me. But
the country will take that. They'd love that.
Listen, Fox would take it. Everyone would take it. And I was kind of going back and forth all week as to who I think was going to win it. But look, you pick the Eagles. I'll pick the Packers. Let's do it. And we'll break it all down after the game. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to do it. And we don't get to say let's do this again. But next year let's run it back no matter what.